Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for November 23rd, 2021. At this time, I'll ask the secretary to take roll call.
Mike Murphy.
Here.
Evan Scully.
Here.
Marcy Daniel.
Present.
Chip Postiglione.
Here.
And Stephen Thau.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. With that, I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Thank you, everybody. One last administrative item, fire exits. In case we need to leave here in a hurry, you can go out the back doors along the glass wall in the back, or leave through the exits which you came in through the front door. With that, I'd just like to mention that we have 5 public hearings tonight, and we're going to limit the time on those. We're going to keep moving. Nobody's going to have more than 30 minutes. If we can get you done quicker than 30 minutes, that'll be the case too. So I just want everybody to know that we have a busy agenda, and we're going to move right through it. So, first order of business is new public hearings. Is somebody here representing Congregation Sherry Torah?
So on.
Okay, and before you get started, would anybody like to make a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing on Sherry Torah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congregation of Sherry Torah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Back.
Good evening. My name is Joel Mann, on behalf of Mann Associates, on behalf of the applicant. So at the last meeting, the board has scheduled a public hearing with the condition that I need to submit certain items that I believe that I've met that conditions. The list of the items that was submitted was the 2 approved site plans for the first cluster of trailers, for the second one, then an updated survey on the current conditions, and the resolution of approvals, and also a narrative of the history of the school and why we got to that point that as of today that we still need an extension, the 3-year extension for the trailers, and why we believe that we hope that this will not be needed again as per the best information that we have now. And as explained at the last meeting, that the building that's under construction that's supposed to be done by that time is delayed, and based on the scheduling with all the materials back ordered and during the time that the construction was closed, we believe that a 3-year extension will be helpful to finish that building. Once that building will be completed, we will be able to remove the trailers, and we have sufficient space for the girls. And in addition to that, there are multiple other sites that are being constructed outside the town, and we are finishing up some site plans that we're planning to submit to the planning board. So we have, at that point, we'll probably have hopefully new approvals and start construction of new buildings going forward, that when we need it, we shall have it. And just in the last just an example, in the last 3 weeks, the congregation went into a contract on another property, actually in the village of Kiryat Joel. So they are working, planning ahead. When they started the congregation, it was small. No one were able to plan ahead, but now there's new administrators in the last couple of years. They're working very hard to make sure that we're planning ahead, and we hope that this extension will be something that will not need to happen again going forward. And we appreciate your effort looking into it, and we hope that we can get this approval tonight.
Okay, Just a couple of timeline questions. When was the first site plan approved for the first set of trailers?
I believe it was in 2012. That's where I see, it's like, I'm not talking from memory, just what I had it. So based on the records where I have, the site plan was approved in 2012. Yes, the end of 2012.
Yes, yes.
And the next one was approved in 2019. I think there was an 18 and 19, they filed for an amended site plan. The same time where they did the trailers, they had two site plans for the trailers. So it's like in 2019 was the amended. Just for an example, from the approval date till, so it was 3 years from the approval date till today, but in fact the use of the trailers wasn't even 3 years because they're supposed to be still to be constructed. So it's like we didn't have the trailers right away. In 2019, the resolution was in 18 for 3 years, but the fact the use of the trailers wasn't even 3 years because it was just constructed during 2019.
Takes time to build something once you get
Yes,
approval.
to get it
So
ordered, built, installed, and everything. So
Okay. So, over the course of the last month, I did go out to the site to take a look at the conditions.
Yep.
This is the Sherry Torah Boys School that
Correct.
is right next door. This is just a paved and unpaved portion of the parking lot between the boys' school and the girls' school.
yeah, there is some there is Ivy Lane. There is a private road going up. It's not being used by anyone, but that's part of that road.
Right. My concern was I was looking at the conditions over at the girls' school.
Okay.
You know, and so this was the first site plan that was approved back in 2012, this set of white trailers with the green top on it. And then I guess in the 2019, it's the other portion that's yellow and brown sitting in the background there. There it is. That's a
Correct.
close-up of it. Correct. All right, so I didn't really go all the way around the site and into it. I generally do these kind of visits from the roadway and out front, not to be too intrusive. But, you know, this is a school property, right? And this was always supposed to be temporary since 2012, and then again in 2018. And, you know, school property should be inspiring to children, you know, not a place that is parking lot and gravel paths and trailers. And I'm sure you want to get out of there and put these children in a better environment.
Correct.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that happen.
Certainly, if there's any, it's temporary, but still, if there's any improvement that makes sense that you would recommend, we will take it serious. So.
You know, part of the issue I see at the site is that there's not a lot of definition in terms of pavement areas and striping to, you know, let buses know where they're going, and how do you keep the children from this parking lot area?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're going to be out there for the next 3 years and this condition continues to exist or deteriorate, and, you know, something really.
Mm-hmm. So we had actually, while talking about, we're also working something on the school, the existing school, because things that got approved 10 years ago, the whole situation is different based on experience, based on new safety requirements with schools. There is some federal funding for school safety, and they're about to install a new traffic pattern around it. There is discussion about putting new fencing around the school for security, and we can, but only around the main school, not anything around this one because it's temporary, but we can work on that too and try to figure that out to make it more safe.
I think, you know, just looking at it, the most unsafe part about this is I have no idea where the children are get off the bus and whether they have to cross all this rough terrain to get to the school and walk up those ramps.
So basically, the bus is dropping off the children just in the front of that building.
Well, like I said, there's no striping out there, so
Right,
it's hard to
right.
make those decisions, and it's helpful to, just the bus drivers who go there every day. I assume they know
Correct.
where they're going and where to drop them off. But that's my concern out here, is that it was built as a temporary facility. It's starting to show its age, and if you can clean up any of these pedestrian hazards that are out there, that would be
Sure.
appreciated.
Sure.
On the mic, please.
Anybody on the board have any questions regarding this site?
If I remember correctly, in the back, was there the bakery, or there was another business that was very close that was not really kept clean at all? With a
They-
lot of vehicles, a lot of junk.
You're talking from this building that he's showing now, that's the Matzah Factory, and yes, they were that's run not under the same congregation, but it's the same people, but they actually took care on that, and the site, the building department actually gave them a violation at one point. I was involved, helped them out, and it's now clean and taken care of. For the last year, this is a very, very well-maintained property. We have multiple inspections, from the building department and that.
Their egress, though, in and out of there with the traffic, I don't know what kind of traffic. Is there trucks with the products coming in and out of there and going by the school, if that could be in any kind of danger? When I drove by that's the one striking thing that stood out to me. I just didn't understand that business and how it operates and how it might impact the children.
So it's a religious Matzah Factory. It's basically open just seasonal. That's during winter time, because before to bake matzahs for Passover. It's like a couple months, not even starting the beginning of the winter, and there's very low traffic during that time. The heaviest traffic is happening right in the week before Passover, when the schools are basically closed. There might be some deliveries, but they have it's separated from the main school, and there's a dedicated road up. That's part of the Ivy Lane that goes up to that Matzah Factory.
And I guess the other concern that I would have, not being on the board long, and if this is temporary school has been there for
2012.
10 years, 9 years, going on 10 years, what constitutes temporary? You're getting, and then if we're looking for an extension, where does it end?
If I may comment a little bit on that, just to go back the history, the town of Monroe, the zoning code didn't have a provision, a limit of temporary. And typically, when you go all the way in school districts all over the country, there is school trailers allowed under the federal, I don't remember the name, it's being governed by the federal government. The school districts, they can have temporary trailers, because that happens a lot of time, that you have school districts that you need another building, but you're not ready for another building. But these trailers are all approved for school use by the building code. At that point when we started, so the use of the trailers didn't went into use probably before 2014, because at that time we didn't have sewer, water. We were supposed to construct a whole site around it. At that time, the town didn't have a expiration of limitation. It was like a temporary structure, and that was the intent of the approval. At that time, it was for 5 years. The last time when we got approval, at that point, the town had in place the new zoning for 3 years. So at that point, they approved it for 3-year period, and now we're asking one more 1 3-year extension based on the ZBA. So it's the first time that we need a variance for that kind of use here. That's what I want to point out.
If I remember correctly from the last time, within that extension, it's going to be hopeful that the girls' school that's being constructed
Will be done.
will be done, but there's no guarantee of that? Because how long, it was, though you were saying that the cost of building, what's been delaying that for this long?
So what happened is in the last, we got the building permits, we got the site plan approval basically in about 3 years, less than 3 years. The concept was to have it done, the building. What happened, we had COVID in the middle that resulted closure of construction, a back ordering of materials, like I gave an example. Just we ordered already the roof trusses. It's like metal roof trusses are about 12 months back ordered. It's unbelievable, that kind of thing. And the other thing that slowed it down, the lack of funding that was struggling during that time. There was nowhere to go for fundraising. But as we stand now, we have they're at the second floor, and they feel very comfortable that within the 3-year period. What I said is they hope to be done in 2 years, but 3 years they will definitely be done with that building. And if not, it's a crisis because they don't have place in these trailers too. They need much more than these trailers here. So
This is a girls' school,
yes,
and the boys' school is behind it in the old Manhattan Beer,
correct.
right? And since this has been a temporary school, there's another girls' school that opened up right down the road, right?
They have already one girls' school building there. They're building the second one. Yeah, and as explained, why the need for the girls are much faster than the boys, because the boys, once they get to the age of 12, 13, they don't need to stay so close to their home. So the school was able to find more facilities, like they have one in Windsor and like other in Bloomingburg. So they have other areas, but the girls they need to keep in the same area. So that was the difficult issue.
Just like to have a comforting feeling that if you grant the extension for the purpose, it's the last time, but, where do you get that warm and fuzzy feeling?
I'm just looking at the site plan
Mike, pull you mic.
that were proposed on that site plan. Walkways that drop-off area right on the existing driveway. I guess that's Ivy Lane. And it doesn't appear that the site really matches what's on this site plan. So that's why it kind of struck me when I looked at this is the first time I'm seeing the site plan, but when I looked at the building and I didn't see that good connectivity, between the old school and the new and the way so much pavement running up past the school. That's the kind of stuff that I think you need to clean up in order to occupy that space for the next 2 years again.
Sure. We can put that as a condition in the approval. Yeah.
Everybody asked the right question.
Okay, with that being done, I'd like to open the floor to the members of the public. Does anybody in the audience have questions for Mr. Mann regarding this application? Order from the public or closing state?
No, I believe I answered to everything and explained everything. Is there any concerns? I'm here to address it.
And I thank you for providing all of the site plan, the previously approved site plans that we asked you for.
I tried the best. I wasn't involved in that times, and
But
it was a
you-
lot of work in a short period of time to get all these.
You're able to collect them more or less.
Yes.
I thank you. Okay, with all that being said and done, would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Can someone read? I think there's somebody out that back door. glass door.
Probably realized that they need to walk around, so.
No, they came in. No, it's closed up front already after 7:30.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Chairman.
All right, getting back to business, would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So carried. So the next item that we have here is to consider requested is a two-year extension of the temporary school facility.
3 year.
3 years?
Yeah, we said, so basically we said that we hope to get it done, but 2 years, that's what we want, but just to be on the safe side, we're requesting a 3-year extension. That's where our application and explained everywhere. It's in my
That's
narrative
the
too.
original app.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're talking about granting here is a time extension. It still gets treated as though it's an area variance. So we're going to go through the 5 factors involved in making that determination, and starting with whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties will be created.
Change. Maybe there should be some changes to the parking is kind of,
I agree, and I think if once we get to crafting
Okay.
the variance, maybe
Okay.
we talk about
Right,
under
what-
what conditions.
What should be made whole from that last copy that from that last sheet that you were just referencing?
The 2019 site plan.
Yeah, the site plan.
Okay, whether the benefits sought by the applicant
Mike, please.
a timeline issue for them. The only thing they could do is speed up the, construction process of the new school. And whether that gets done in 2 years preferably, or takes 3 years, it will take some time. So I don't know, what else they can do about that in order to achieve it by some other method. Whether the requested area variance is substantial. Project site, in my opinion, has been in this condition for the past 9 years, since 2012, the original approval. Granting them the additional 3 years is significant, but
Face your mic.
it is somewhat substantial, in my view. But we could do, change it otherwise. And it gets back to the timeline issue.
Is it, though? Is it outside their control?
I have a clarifying question. The original proposal was to take how many years to build the school?
So when they grant approval for the, let's call it 2018, for a 3-year extension that expires in 21, the intent was that they were at the finish line for the approval for the new girls' school on Glenwood. The intent was to have it within 3 years constructed and completed. So basically, like we said, they started, the first of the thing when you see in the timelines, till we got the actual site plan approval for the new girls' school, took at least another year. because there's always conditions. It was probably like miscalculated by the planning board too. This was approved at that point by the planning board, because once you have a site plan approval and from a conditional site plan approval till you have the signed site plan can take a couple months or more, depends on the list of conditions, because there's a lot of outside agency approvals. You need to get sewer, water, and a lot of things. Then when they started construction, we were hit by the COVID-19 that, like we said, slowed down. Without that, we were able, like the first school building, we finished, even the one floor is enough to house the kids from that trailer. So there's sometimes, even if the site is completed and the building, even if it's not finished all the stories, you can separate one story. The plan was to have enough space in the building done within the 3 years. But unfortunately, due to the circumstance, we're not at that point right now. So it was something that was out of our hands.
Going back, though, to the 2018 site plan, is that the year, Mr. Chairman? Is it 2018?
The resolution is 2018, the site plan was signed in 19.
19?
But the 3 years started from the
Right.
resolution.
So, but there's some things on there that just seem like they're not fulfilled that could be taken care of.
What?
The parking, just the basic things where you keep bringing up the sewer, the water that's delayed you. But there's also site work that could be taken care of on this site here.
Oh, okay, I
And
understand.
that's been ignored, right? And when you're asked the questions, it's just, you go back to COVID-19, getting all of through the process, which is understandable, but there's still the basic site work that could have been done.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get that correct. I didn't mean not to answer on
No,
that.
it's
So
okay.
I was, in that time period, I was already involved. There was multiple issues on the site, like, for example, that's for sure, the site was at one point 100% in compliance, the striping was there. It was probably like, it's after one winter and snow plowing, the lines are getting ripped up. But there was one of the storms, the last couple of storms, like you can see in the old site plan, there's like a wooded area in the front of the building that was in the site plan, that's not there anymore. There was a couple old trees there, everything fall down and basically created a mess. It was already, at that point they got a violation, they cleaned up everything. So the only thing I think what's missing is the striping, and that's something that was there 2 times. I remember striping it 2 times based on violation, and we will definitely put it back. So what I'm saying is, you might be correct that it was not constantly, but it was not like fully negligent in every time. But they were multiple times in compliance.
But
Probably have pictures.
but it
yeah.
seems like it took a violation to get the action.
Again, we're trying the best.
If you put yourself in my shoes and listen and see what's going on, it seems like it takes a violation to get the action.
Not every time. It's like, like I pointed out in my letter, the schools are not funded by any tax money, or there's no money running in the streets for that school. Everything is private funding, and there's heavy fundraising involved, and every dollar counts. So it's like, but no one is trying to do anything to harm the safety of the kids, and we're trying the best. And just probably a year and a half ago, there's a new administrator took over, like, who's more capable to run like a bigger school, and they did a lot of improvements since then, even without any violations, and they're in very good condition.
Moving on to item 4.
Mike, please, you gotta pull that closer, Mike. Sorry.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, number 5. So, in terms of physical or environmental conditions, what I see out there on the site doesn't match what's on the site plan. And the thing that strikes me most about the site is that, this is a school for young children, and I see a lot of tripping hazards on the pavement areas And as you mentioned, Mr. Mann, originally on the 2019 site plan, there was a large area of trees where this rough pavement is now, but those trees are all gone, and that pavement is from edge to edge. In the original site plan, there was only supposed to be a walkway paved from the roadway up to the entrance of the school. And, you know, that has also changed from what was on the site plan. You can see that's more than the walkway. You can see this might have been the original walkway line, and then this additional pavement was added, and all those trees were taken down.
The trees wasn't in this area, it's a little bit further up, I believe. More, yes, it's showing
Yeah,
that
looking
there.
at the site plan, the trees were pretty much in alignment. The front of the trees were aligned with the front of the building, so they were back in here.
Yeah,
Oh. That's, you know, that's where I come out on this project.
just to clarify one thing, when he's looking at the site plan, there's the paved area, like for the walkway, just next to the walkway, everything around the wooded area was gravel. So it was the way, basically most of the areas, the gravel was, the TC area was originally gravel. You can see a rough gravel, it's noted there. It was just two small wooded areas, but again, gravel is being washed away and definitely needs to be maintained, and if you wish it should be paved, might be an option, otherwise.
It wasn't just gravel. I mean, I could see remnants of pavement in there.
What?
I mean, it wasn't all just gravel. I could see remnants
Some-
of pavement in there.
No, you can see on the site plan, it says, so they fixed a little bit of it with paving, but they can fix more of that. And this needs constantly seasonal maintenance and, yeah.
Yes, and I think right now, I don't know, Board, are you pretty well decided on which way you want to go here? If everybody's comfortable, I'd like to propose a resolution with conditions. I propose that the ZBA grant the 3-year extension for the temporary occupation of the existing trailer schoolhouse buildings, and also that the applicant be brought up to code on everything that is shown on the 2019 site plan, including the proposed walkways, make sure there's good connectivity, and beyond that, remove any tripping hazards. There's clearly more pavement that's out on the site now than was proposed under the original site plan. I'm not going to say tear that out, but I would certainly like to see that cleaned up. You know, as we look in here, you can see there's 2 different levels, and it's just a tripping hazard. And that's the kind of thing, I'm not going to make this burdensome on you, but I do want to see these kind of potential pedestrian hazards minimized.
Fully agree to that.
And then there's also the proposed walkway that's supposed to wrap around. I don't see that in this picture, but maybe it's flat here. But it should be, you know, the proposed walkway should go from the original school building to the new school building, the way it's shown on the site plan. Make sure that all of the, you know, the surfaces out there, the grass surfaces, and even here you see there's a lot of gravel between the edge of pavement and the grass. Just clean it up and make it pedestrian safe.
Bring the site into order and make it pedestrian safe, basically.
Yes, and also the original site plan had different striping that, as you said, has disappeared over the, you know, the 4 years that it was put
Like there's
down.
a stop striping there, yes, I see something on the plan.
So if you could repair the striping, and
Yes.
basically all I'm saying is, bring the site plan back up to original approval code, and eliminate all these additional tripping hazards that have been created by the implementation of additional pavement and removal of the trees.
That's a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Longest motion yet.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So granted.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And appreciate your input. I appreciate the awards. I will hand it, no, it's very important for a school to stay in order, and definitely will tell them that they need to keep her up better than before. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, so, keeping everything moving. Next item on the agenda is Jewel Rutledge. Is anybody here to present Jewel Rutledge?
Good evening. How are you?
Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Romel Lasso, contractor for Mr. Rutledge.
And if you would, briefly go over the case that you have before us.
Open the
We
public.
need to open the
Oh,
public hearing.
excuse me,
Oh,
yes.
I make a motion to open a public meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have your name again?
Romel Lasso.
Okay, if you can state for the record the purpose that you're here for tonight in terms of the variances that you seek?
Yeah, so we are here to discuss the accessory building that Mr. Rutledge has on his property at the moment. We are seeking a variance for front yard distance. I know we had discussed a few other variances, including the height of the building, as well as the percentage of lot use, but I was almost pretty sure that we didn't have to request a variance for that. So if I'm not mistaken, the only variance we're here for is the distance from the front yard.
Was it determined that the height was okay?
The height, right?
Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, we did say that he needed to do basically the front yard setback because he has two front yards at this location. The information you had received from Mr. Lasso's office on their letterhead regarding the lot coverage and the heights of the building, and speaking with the building inspector, that is not enough to grant permits unless it has been formally approved by the surveyor. They were unable to get it at the last time because the surveyor had some health issues. I explained to them that the letter went out for his public hearing listing all three so that he would have coverage this evening for those, but that they did need to get formal approval from the surveyor saying that those were correct. I have not seen anything that they have done that. Because him saying it on their paperwork is not guaranteed for a building inspector to give a permit for building.
Okay.
So he said it has to be a formal approval from the surveyor that the height was met and the lot coverage was met.
All right, thank you for the reminder. Yeah, so if we don't have that information, I would propose, rather than hearing this case tonight, that we hold it over until we have all the information required by the building department. Otherwise, we're sending him back an incomplete determination.
Right. Have you been able to get anything from the surveyor? Have you been in touch with the surveyor?
We reached out to him, but Mr. Rutledge wasn't able to get the new data on that survey.
If this surveyor is not available to complete it, you might have to go to another surveyor. If he's a one-man operation, I mean,
Right.
I understand that he had some health issues, but if he has nobody else who can go out and confirm it and to do this for you, you might have to get another surveyor per what the building inspector had said.
Okay. I mean, I can let Mr. Rutledge know, but I'm sure, as you guys are aware, it would be an additional expense that he has to go on. I'm not sure if the changes were agreed to by the surveyor were going to be without any charge, but if we go to a different surveyor, I'm sure they're going to have to redo everything and basically start from zero.
I feel sorry for Mr. Rutledge to have to incur additional cost if his surveyor cannot complete the job. But, this board only acts on documents that have signed, sealed surveys by, or site plans from architects, licensed architects, engineers, and surveyors. So if we don't have all the information that's necessary on this survey map, you have to talk to Mr. Rutledge about it and find out how he can go about getting that fixed. And the surveyor, what is his name? I'm not,
Jeffrey
Donovan?
Donovan?
Done.
Yeah, he's out of Montgomery.
I'm not familiar with Mr. Donovan's work. I've never met him before. So, here in Orange County, New York, I suggest that you pursue this further with Mr. Donovan, and hopefully you can get it resolved easily. So what we're looking for is a updated survey by Mr. Donovan, calling out the actual surveyed distances from the side yards, all right, because even on here, all of this is written in by hand, and, that's just, we can't accept marked up maps.
Now, you should have one without the markup.
We should, okay.
Yeah, there is one from April, I believe. Right, it has a seal on it, but it did not confirm what needed to be confirmed.
I'm looking at one of June 4th.
June, okay, maybe not, I'm sorry. These are items that have been asked for since the beginning from the board.
I'd have a seal.
I have the sealed copy downstairs.
Oh, okay. So that's the surveyor's offset, what is it, 18.8 or something?
Right, 18.8.
Right.
And there's no bulk lot area data that's on this table, and that's what we keep asking for, and I think you filled out the form, but it needs to be, verified by your surveyor. So, I recommend that we table this until you can come back with that completed survey map. Everybody okay with
If I could just add here, this is what we asked last ZBA meeting we had, if we were okay to go with this. Had we known initially that this was going to be the issue, that the building inspector was not going to accept what we had, we would have taken the extra time to, try to reach out and
Here we are, now's your opportunity to take that extra time to get everything taken care of. And again, that bulk lot table should be on the survey map.
Okay,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Rut-
we can't hear you. Can
You
you
have to come
come
up
to the
and
front
talk into
desk?
the microphone. I spoke with Ramel and I told him why the three were going in there and what had to be done before you got your letter.
It's very close, though, right? it shouldn't be a tremendous amount of survey work for that
No,
surveyor to go out there and get what we need.
It looks like all the field work has been done. It's a matter of, documenting
Right. No, right?
the lot coverage and the height of the shed. I mean, they have presented us with
Right.
pictures
Yeah.
and measuring tapes, but, that's got to be in a more formal manner. It's got to be from the surveyor. So let's get that in order, and we'll see you when you're ready next. And I guess we just carry this over until the next
Next
meeting.
board meeting.
And by the way, this is November. There will be no meeting in December. The next board meeting will be January 22. And the date of that, I don't have off the top of my head. Let me
I don't
see.
have the calendar yet,
All right, so-
but I can look on my phone.
So would Mr. Rutledge have to go through the process of sending out the notice, the certified mail?
Oh, no, because we're keeping the public hearing open. We're giving you a chance to correct the papers so that we can give the building department a clean determination on what's being granted.
The public hearing is open now officially. It does not have to be renoticed.
Oh,
And that's why we noticed it with all three variances in there, so that you wouldn't have to renotice it if this happened.
Right, and it looks like our next meeting is going to be on January 25th, 2022. Okay, thank you.
You can leave out that door, or you can go out the front
Yeah,
door.
I don't think I'm as, getting back in, that's the problem.
Right. Once you walk out, you're locked out.
Did you
I
want
need the
green-
mailing cards if you have them.
I have them, yep.
All right, you can just leave them with me.
All right, thank you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know, they don't respond to them. I'm still getting mine back from my mailing, so. If you get any more in the meantime before we meet again, just bring them to me. All right? Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, so that brings us up to our next public hearing on the matter of Michael Adams.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe McKay. I'm from
I'll
the...
wait till they open up the public hearing, please.
Make a motion to open a public hearing on Michael Adams.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So granted.
Good evening. My name is Joe McKay. I'm an attorney with Catania Mann and Ryder. I'm here with Michael Adams this evening. We let the record reflect that we have provided the clerk with the certified mailing receipts, and we're ready to present our application. By way of background, we have made 3 submissions on this matter. We made an initial application, and my firm put in a written submission in support of the original application. There was a further inspection by the town engineer to measure the lake or water line with respect to the application. At that time, the building inspector was also present. Other violations were noted that my client has applied to correct, so that resulted in an amended application. And we then made a further submission with some photographs, because when we were here last, the board had some questions concerning the views that might be impacted. So for the record, there should be an application, an amended application, and 3 letters in the record.
Not received one of those today?
We did send the photographs as a further submission yesterday. I have hard copies of the photographs, if you'd like me to hand them up to the board now.
Yes, please.
have one extra. You can have this now.
That was emailed to me?
That was yesterday, yes.
Okay.
I thank you for these photographs. Let me see if I can find them so I can put them up on the screen.
I think it was only this morning, because I think they sent them after 4 o'clock last night. What would have been the name that they were sent to me under?
It would have been, first name is Shannon, and it's Grosskopf, Grosskopf.
Okay, so then it came in after I went home last night. So first thing this morning, Mike.
That's it.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have a revised application. What has been revised on your application? The original application that you had here was to build 2 structures within the 50-foot setback of the shoreline of O&R Lake. What has changed on that application?
We had submitted an amended application, which this board heard last month, and that's to relocate 2 of the sheds that are existing on the property, but to relocate those sheds. One was encroaching onto a neighboring property, we're relocating that, and another did not meet the front yard requirement.
Closer to the mic.
The other shed did not meet the front yard requirement, and we're requesting a variance for that.
Requesting a variance for the shed that crosses the front property line?
No, it's going to be relocated, and we've submitted the map to show the proposed relocation area, and that's in the front yard. So the variance would be for the front yard variance. Setback.
On your mic, Kevin.
We wouldn't be able to do the other variance because it's on somebody else's property, but you're looking for a front yard setback.
Well, we're relocating it.
Yeah, because
That's
you're
the-
relocating it off of the other property. Okay.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
And when did we receive that new map? I'm sorry.
That was prior to the last meeting. We had a discussion about midnight or 12:30 in the morning at the last meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not surprised if you don't recall exactly. We finished up about 1 a.m.
There was another map, though, that shows,
They did have submission in before the ZBA cutoff this month.
and it shows the
Which-
relocation of the one that's encroaching on the property.
I don't remember when cutoff was.
I think I physically filed it the day of the cutoff.
Did.
That was to submit originals. We had submitted the amended application with the date of,
November
October,
2nd or November 3rd, that they did a submission to us. The emails probably went out the next week, I think, though. Because I was working on their,
It would be the center one that says shed by the driveway.
Okay, so, getting back to this application, right? Originally it came here because you wanted to construct two structures right at the edge of the lake, a shed,
in the pavilion.
right, that was 14 by 28, and a gazebo right on the edge of the lake, that is proposed pavilion, 20 foot by 30 foot, right on the edge of the lake.
It's 10 feet off the lake. It's right on the property line.
Well, both of those structures are still fully within the 50-foot setback. Now, the other drawings that you provided us with, the shed in the woods, right? What was recognized once we received, let me just go back to that map. What was recognized once we received the map was that not only did we have these two yellow structures that are being proposed within the 50-foot setback, but there was a third one already existing that was within the 50-foot setback, and then that there was the shed in the front yard that is also encroaching into the New York State right-of-way. So now, the shed by the driveway, you're saying you're going to put it on your property and move it 20 feet inside, but it's still in the front yard.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so that's a new variance being added. And this is a marked up map by driveway. I don't even understand that too.
Wasn't proposing to move it. It's actually already there. Half of the shed is more than 50 feet from the lake, but the front corner of it's 37 feet from the lake. So I'm asking for a variance to allow it to stay there. Now, I didn't realize, to be honest with you guys, that I even needed a permit for a movable shed. These are all sheds that can be picked up and moved. So I understand now that I did.
Everybody gets a shed permit, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I apologize for that, but I didn't know.
All right.
I also didn't realize that my property line is where it is. If you were on my property, it doesn't look that way, and I just forgot to look, to be honest.
And I recognize that the 50-foot setback from streams, lakes, and watercourses is not something that everybody is familiar with. But, you know, at this point in time, you are familiar with it, you understand what it is. And so now you're proposing not to move the existing shed, to add another shed, and to add the pavilion, plus put a shed in the front yard that is still at variance because it's within the front yard setback. So now we're looking at 4 variances.
Yes, sir. You can't see the shed from the road in the front yard. I don't really have a traditional front yard. So that's why I'm asking for the variance.
I understand, there's a
There's a
steep
20
embankment
I
from the
know,
roadway.
yeah.
Right
Right.
behind the shed.
Well aware of where your house is.
You can't see anything.
Yeah, no, I understand.
You know, the other part of it is a 3.5 acre parcel of land, and, you know, to add all these features, it could be done within, you know, the allowable setback areas. So these are all self-created hardships, in my view. And, you know, the reason for the 50-foot setback from streams, lakes, and watercourses is to try to preserve that zone. That's where the land meets the water. It's highly beneficial habitat area for amphibians, reptiles, birds. It's always rich with animals and of all types. So,
And just
just
visually
with
aesthetics
respect to
as
this-
well.
and yes,
Because you
it
don't
also
want-
has to do to the aesthetics. And, you know, this is the town of Monroe, the lake region. We have lakes all over this town. And everybody has that same problem when they have their property up against the lake. And you know, I'm just saying that, you know, for me to get past this, you know, then I have to worry about everybody else who's got frontage on a lake, that they're gonna come in, clear cut the trees, and put up docks and sheds and gazebos. And that's one of the issues that we have as a board, is once we start to yield on these requirements, then the next person comes along and they feel they're entitled to the same liberties.
Mr. Chairman, let me just make 2 points.
And
with regard-
before we go any further, and I looked through the pictures that you provided, and these are all pictures from, you know, far away, you know, aerial photographs, shots from across the lake, and there's nothing that shows you, like, you're right on the water's edge.
Mr. Chairman, you had requested the views. You had concerns about the views. And the views of this property would be along the roadways, and that's what the photographs are trying to indicate.
Also, right on your site, though, you know, what kind of improvements exist out there? What does it all look like? I mean, I looked at it, you know, from afar also. I didn't go right up into the property. And yeah, from O&R Road, it's hard to see everything, but you do see that it is all cleared out. And that's part of our concern, you know, is preserving that, you know, that environment, not just the view shed, but the environment that exists along these shorelines.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to respond to the point that you're making with respect to the reason that there's the 50-foot setback. In this particular instance, that lake is used for business purposes. It's used for skiing. So it's a business use right there adjacent to Mr. Adams' property. I don't think that the types of environmental concerns that you're mentioning are really apply here, because that lake area is used for commercial purposes.
You know,
I don't mean, I'm not trying to debate
watershed
it.
dies the death of 1,000 cuts. Everybody does their little cut and said, it doesn't matter, it's small. Or it doesn't matter because the other guy did it. And that's what I want to avoid here, is setting that precedence that, yeah, the 50-foot setback from streams, lakes, and watercourses is a debatable issue or.
So there are 3 other sheds on the lake that are within 14 feet of the lake. Existing at the other end of the lake. I don't know how that plays.
Use the mic.
Can you, yeah, speak into the mic.
Should I do a little bit of a background first and then discuss it? I'm not sure the best way to have a good dialogue.
Let me just poll the board, see what kind of questions they have, because so far you've just heard from me.
From the picture, going back to the pictures, the questions I would have is, from O&R Road, there's spots on O&R Road that is difficult to see, but there's some spots at the one end that you get a beautiful view.
Of just my house.
Yeah, but, you know, it's
you can't
still,
see anything.
and, you know,
You can't see
I don't
the
see that within these pictures. I guess the question I have with the existing shed, that's part of the shed is over the 50-foot, that can't be moved?
There's an abrupt hill right behind it, so I really don't have.
So you'd have to do site work?
I actually did a little site work to put it where it is, but it gets very steep right behind it.
Which one is that? That's the one that's,
That's the one that's existing, I call it in the woods. And you can't see that
37,
from anywhere.
37 feet from,
The
okay.
front corner is
That-
37.
Yeah, that one, okay.
You can actually see that dotted line is the 50-foot.
Okay.
Mike, please.
I'm sorry, you can see the dotted line goes
Right.
through the shed.
Well, and the adjacent property, which is owned by the ski company, has multiple sheds, also less than 50 feet from the lake, and it's got other structures less than 50 feet from the lake.
And that was a lake recreation site plan that allowed that to happen. That this is, you know, that, as you said, that's a business, it's on the lake, and, you know, the Town of Monroe Planning Board entertained an application, they went through it, and they approved all of that. This is something completely different. This is a residential property, and, you know, we started out with 2 known variances that you're looking for, now we're up to 4.
Chairman, I
But
just
that's-
emailed you the public notice. Actually, 6. Emailed you the public notice.
That's correct. But, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that the board's going to have to consider is the impact on the character of the neighborhood, and there are no other residential properties adjacent to this one. The adjacent property is the ski club, and that
Oh, turn the mic
neighborhood-
closer
to you, please.
In that neighborhood, essentially, the sheds on Mr. Adams' property are consistent with the sheds that are on the neighboring property, so when the board considers the impact on the character of the neighborhood, I would submit that these sheds are actually consistent with the character of the neighborhood and not inconsistent in any way.
And actually much less visible.
Mike.
And much less visible to the public. Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
I saw you shaking your head no when the chairman said that was a business and this wasn't. I saw, were you,
shaking?
yeah, were you alluding to something? I just didn't know if I was missing something.
well, the chairman mentioned that it was zoned.
lean into the mic,
Please
please.
speak into the mic.
I believe you mentioned that it was zoned lake commercial something?
Recreation.
Yeah,
Recreational.
lakefront recreation
And
property.
so was my house property. And it got rezoned without me being notified. Back at some point, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And so my house is now actually not even classified as residential, correct? It's classified as light industrial or something.
I think it's the general business zone.
Oh, make sure you,
Yes, I believe it's in the GB zone, the general business zone.
So it was actually a shock to the lake owners as well, that it got, because I don't believe they have that classification anymore. I think they're general business also, I think.
And that will somewhat impact, or at least be a discussion point, when we get to whether or not these were self-created hardships or not. At least it would be a further item for discussion.
I think I remember us having an early conversation about that because in the first generation of maps that we saw, I believe it said entertainment pavilion, where I questioned, why does it say entertainment pavilion? In the first generation of the maps, it was listed like that.
Well, it's just for private residential use. I don't remember that exact
Yeah,
terminology.
but I also question, is it going to be entertainment, outside entertainment, or?
No, it's
Yeah.
his personal use.
Family and friends.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Does that affect the setbacks?
Yeah, actually, it does. Lot area is 10,000 square feet. Front yard, lot width is 100, which they meet. They meet the lot area. Side yards is, front yard is 60 feet, which they meet it for the house, but not for the shed in the front yard. One side yard, 8, total side yards, 20, so that's not a problem. Minimum rear yard is 20 feet. Maximum allowed lot coverage is 65, building height 35. And any side yard shall be 50 feet wide when adjacent to a residential zone, which apparently doesn't apply. And as per section 5743 of the zoning requirements for a lot abutting the lake stream, setback lines are parallel to and 50 feet from the present normal shoreline or bank of every lake or body of water. Right, so that's the one that's really the big hang-up here, is the setback from the lake.
On your mic.
Oh, this is now in a general business area, and it's not zoned residential property, that still applies, the 50-foot setback from the waterfront. Other further questions?
Just provide us what a summary is of the 6 variances that you're asking for.
Sure. The summary was in the amended application, but there are 6. With respect to the new proposed storage shed, there's, sure. With
Talk
respect
very
to the,
soft.
with respect to the new proposed storage shed, there's a 50-foot setback from the lake requirement. We're seeking a 30-foot variance. With respect to the proposed pavilion, there's also a 50-foot lake setback requirement, and we're seeking a variance of 40 feet. Also, with respect to the pavilion, there's a 5-foot setback from the sideline. So we're looking for a 5-foot variance there. Then, as we discussed earlier, there was a further inspection of the property, and now there are several additional variances based upon the relocation of the prior existing sheds. With respect to the shed that's located in the front yard, there are 2 variances that are needed. One would be the scheduled district regulations require a minimum setback of 60 feet in the front yard. We'd be seeking a 45-foot setback. The code also would not permit the shed in the front yard, so we're seeking a variance for that. The last shed is what we call the north side shed, and that also has the same 50-foot lakefront setback requirement, and we're looking for a variance of 30 feet.
Writing that down, the third one, you have the new storage shed, you're providing 20 feet from the lakefront, and you need 50. You have the pavilion, it's required a 50-foot from the lakefront, and you're providing what? You're providing 10?
40, yes. We were looking for a 40-foot variance.
And then the third one I missed. What's the third
The
one?
third one, this is also with respect to the pavilion.
Okay.
There's a 5-foot sideline requirement, setback requirement, so we're seeking a 5-foot variance.
Oh, I see. One's the lake and one's to the property line.
Correct.
And you're right on the property line, so,
Correct.
okay.
If no other questions from the board members, I'd like to open up the floor to the public. Are there any questions on the Michael Adams application for 6 variances regarding sheds and gazebos on the property? Yes, sir, please come forward, speak to the microphone, give us your name and...
Scott Olson, I represent Verizon Wireless. We're pretty close to the property, but we don't have any objections to what's being requested for what that's worth.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Further comments from the public? There are no further comments from the public or questions from the board members. Would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, can I go through the 5 factors?
That's our job.
before-
We'll go through the 5 factors. I
He
thank
wa-
you
I-
for your guidance, but
No, but he's entitled to advocate and
Okay.
give the board his position on each. I
As
think
long
that would be
as
appropriate.
long as the
That'll-
record
that'll
is
be
not,
fine.
Yeah.
as long as the record is not closed, I'll be happy to respond to any questions the board members
okay,
have.
very good.
Well, that's better in my notes, though. I didn't even start yet. Oh, I'm sorry, I was waiting
no,
for
no,
you.
we
I'm
said
sorry.
yeah.
If you want to go through the 5,
Sure,
Yeah, no,
sure.
yeah.
I
I think we have a
was
stand
waiting
and close the
for you.
meeting.
no, we do
nodded
ours
off
after
there
we
for a
close
minute.
the public hearing.
All right, so the first factor is the board's going to have to determine whether there's an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or whether there's a detriment caused to nearby properties by the proposed variances. So we have pointed out that the sheds have been present. They were actually present, except for the proposed new one, they were present actually prior to the zone change. So we feel they're actually part of the character of the neighborhood. As I indicated before, the adjoining ski lodge property also contains numerous structures, also close to the lake. So we feel that the property is actually in character with the neighborhood with these proposed variances and is not out of character in any way. Now, I know that we submitted the photographs, which we tried to respond to some of the questions that were raised earlier. These photographs do depict the views from the local roads. Of course, they're not like being there, bird's eye view, a personal view, but that's what we're able to submit to the board. We represent to you that during most of the year, even in clear weather, it would be almost invisible. Most of the sheds and the gazebo itself would be invisible unless you actually drove across the lake, slowed down or stopped and got out of your car to take a look at it. So these things are well set back. It's a wooded lot. Of course, the lakefront is open, but even with that, they're not visible. And with respect to the character of the neighborhood, I'd like you to recall that along Orange and Rockland Road, the adjacent properties contain a power generating station, a parking lot, and on the other side of the property on Route 208 is an office building. It's close to the intersection of Route 208 and 17. There's a salt shed there. And there are simply no residential properties abutting this property. So we don't think this application is going to have any impact on the character of the neighborhood at all. And just so I don't forget, in addition to the professional building indicating that they have no objection, the owners of the lake itself have, and I've put a letter in the record, they have no objection to the variances being granted. The next issue would be whether the benefit sought by Mr. Adams could be achieved by any other means, and we had some discussion about that tonight. Mr. Adams has indicated that much of the lot has a sharp grade and that the sheds need to be located in a safe place so that they're level and secure. There are steep slopes. And quite frankly, considering the shape of the lot and the very strict setback requirements, in addition to the front yard requirements, what would happen is he'd be forced to cluster any structures or anything right in the center of the property, and then they would lose all the utilitarian value. They wouldn't be able to be used in the center of the property because then, of course, they'd impede his view from the lake. We know that quantitatively, the requested variances are substantial. The board has to determine whether or not the variances are substantial. So mathematically or quantitatively, yes, because we're seeking setbacks of 40 feet, 30 feet, 45 feet. So yes, but we would submit that even though they're quantitatively substantial, since they don't have any negative impact on the environment, no negative impact on the character of the neighborhood, no negative impact on any adjoining property owners, that the board should consider that quantitatively, these variances have no adverse effect and should really be given little consideration. The board also has to consider whether or not the variances will have an adverse effect on the physical neighborhood or the environmental conditions of the neighborhood. And I think I've already spoken to that. There are no adjoining residential properties. The adjoining uses are a commercial ski company, parking lot, power generating station, professional office, and essentially 3 state roads that surround the property. So there will be also no impacts from the granting of the variances, such as ordinarily the board would have to consider whether there are impacts for increased parking, or noise, or traffic, or odors, garbage, refuse, waste. None of those things will result from the granting of this application. And the question of whether or not, of course, the last factor is whether these were self-created. Yes, we understand that these are self-created hardships. I'd ask the board to consider, though, the fact that the zoning on Mr. Adams' property has changed since most of the structures were already in existence. And obviously, no one has ever objected to those structures. It wasn't until, certainly no neighbors or neighboring property owners, it wasn't even until the second time that the building inspector came out that they were even noticed. So we submit that the totality of the circumstances here, we ask the board to weigh these factors and to find that because there are no true adverse environmental impacts here, after the board considers all of the factors, we ask that the board grant the variances.
Thank you, Mr. McKay, for your summary. If there are no other questions, would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing has been closed. So, board members, it's now up to us to take a look at the totality of the situation here and go over, what needs to be proven. And also, I mean, let's take a look at, all of the variances that are necessary in order to make this happen. We started off with the 2 variances of the new shed and the new gazebo being within the 50-foot setback of the lakefront. Then, upon asking for a up-to-date map that was more legible, we found that there was one shed in the front yard that actually encroached into the New York State right-of-way for Route 208. And then there was another existing shed that was almost 90% within that 50-foot setback. So the applicant's proposal is to keep everything pretty much where it is, with the exception of the one shed in the front yard, and even there, they're still going to need a variance for that.
And there's two more, right? So the side setback on the gazebo came into play afterwards too, right?
Oh, right, because of the property
And then
line.
there's one more shed that I must have my head up my butt because I can't see where it is. Is it over there? Is it there? Because that's 5 and there's 6. So I'm not clear where the 6th one is.
No, there's 6 variances.
Right.
There's 4.
6 variants. So
4 structures.
So we just named 5. So what's the 6th one?
There's only 4 structures.
No, but what's the 6th variance?
I think the shed up on top, it would be both front yard shed and
And-
setback.
Okay.
Correct.
There's 2 on that one as well.
You're not
Great.
supposed to have a shed in the front
Right.
yard, and even at that, then on top of that, it does not meet the setback requirements. So, after taking a hard look at this application for the past 4 months, we've discovered that there's a lot going on this property. And, they've kindly went through their application again, and they itemized the 6 different variances that are required here. And at this juncture, it's our opportunity to go over, our requirement to go over, what must be proven in order to grant the area variances. So starting with item number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. Now, the character of the neighborhood, in my opinion, they're correct. This is a rather unique property. It's surrounded by highways on 2 sides. It's on a recreational lakefront. It started out as a residential property, and the town, in doing their zoning code update, because of its location on Route 208, revised the property to general. So, the who does it bother?
Face your mic.
On that one, there's a consideration that can. And then item 2 is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method which will be feasible for the applicant to pursue, but would not require a variance. And I think I mentioned it during the meeting that this is a 3.5-acre parcel, and what they have here are 3 sheds that are out of requirement as far as setbacks go. There is further area. Maybe the solution is they don't need 3 sheds. They need 1 garage, centered in the property where they don't have any setback problems. I mean, so to me, that's a feasible alternative. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that.
It's an alternative.
I didn't even think of an alternative, but I do see places where they can go.
What is the items that's being stored in the shed? The good question is, items that's,
Some of it's just personal items that you gather over time.
That does play into environmental, though. I mean, you are saying shed. I've been in plenty of sheds that have gasoline, other items
these are
within
pretty-
10 feet of water.
I find they're pretty aesthetically pleasing sheds. Some of them have,
No, I don't mean how they look, I mean what's in them.
travel bags, furniture. One of the shed that's close to the highway has a lawnmower and a mule. The mule's a little 4-wheel cart, similar to a golf cart. The other 2 have just personal items in them.
No hazardous materials, no storage. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
legitimate question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, they're just personal, household, residential items.
I guess that brings us back to Mike's recommendation with regards to maybe the proposal also is to see if there's opportunity to combine and condense, to consolidate, instead of having all of the multiple sheds, to have one larger storage unit on the property?
The property's fairly undulated. At this point, it would not be very aesthetically pleasing to put it in the middle of the yard, in the middle of the front yard. About where the back of the house is, it drops off quite heavily. And the driveway is a circular driveway that's quite nice with very beautiful trees in it. You know, put a structure in the middle of that would just, in my opinion, look horrible.
All right, that's,
I also think that's something that can be considered, but as we go through the rest of the other things to be considered, I think we can tandem,
that's not the proposal that's before us
Right.
tonight. We're just spitballing ideas.
Right.
So one other thing, I have several very large, beautiful trees that are lit up. It just would ruin the whole effect of the property.
Right, item 3, whether the requested area variances are substantial. And I think by their own measurements themselves, they're fairly substantial. Item 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And, you know, while the neighborhood, again, there's nothing around it that compares to it, I think there is an environmental impact here. Yes, there's not going to be
Definitely.
any more traffic. There's not going to be, you know, large crowds drawn to the property because of this, or air pollution or anything like that. But by stomping on all of these waterfront lands, I think you lose the benefit that's supposed to be there, that habitat for wildlife.
that 50-foot setback is, you know, environmental,
Yeah, what it does, it goes along streams, lakes, and watercourses, and it
Right.
creates corridors throughout the town that provide connectivity from, you know, one to the next.
environmental in nature. That's why it's there, and I think that, you know, that's definitely a factor.
And the last item is whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. All of these structures have been constructed or are being proposed to be constructed within the bounds of all these setback requirements. And that to me. So with all of that taken into consideration, are there any of these variances that the board would like to consider one at a time? Or do you think just... On the mic, please. Or can we just consider
The whole group at once.
And Mr. Chairman, we wouldn't be opposed if the board wanted to take some kind of an informal poll, so to speak. We know that there are a lot of variances, rather than have an up or down, you know, if one member thinks it would be better without a shed or a different location, rather than have the application potentially be denied, if there's some kind of informal poll and we can have a further discussion, we can do that.
I think that's where the chairman was leading, where, when if we go back a couple of the elements to say, is there somewhere else or something we can do or you can do to achieve your goal here of your storage differently, where it's not such an enormous impact with all of that in a 50-foot? If maybe there was one building in a 50-foot that was bigger, would that be acceptable? You know, these are things that we can all spitball here, but,
And the pavilion.
yeah,
Saying storage, that's the pavilion as well.
right.
So I think what the applicant is maybe asking is, I think they're kind of feeling the pulse of the comments that the board is making and going through the 5 factors, and is suggesting maybe it's not ripe for an up or down vote right now. And, you know, from their standpoint, and maybe they'd like to request, because there's been discussion of these alternatives, maybe the applicant is asking that the hearing be reopened to consider maybe presenting the board with some alternatives. Am I hearing you right on that, Mr. McKay, or am I getting it wrong? Again,
From my perspective, I think I know where I'm going on this application. And it would take a completely new site plan that's in compliance with all the zoning setback requirements. That's where I stand up.
So you're saying you don't want to give me anything?
I'm saying.
So if I can just make the one note to address what you had indicated, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the potential impacts, environmental impacts, I just want to make a note that, the town engineer has been out there, the building inspector has been out there at least twice. We weren't notified that there were any potential environmental impacts. Well, I'm just saying that, but I don't want to have an assumption in the record either that there is some type of definitive environmental impact. That's my only point.
Could you share with me what you think the environmental impact is?
Well, he indicated that the lakes are connected and there's sand.
It's
in
the whole
areas that-
purpose behind the 50-foot setback from streams, lakes, and watercourses, is to provide that environmental buffer along those pathways for wildlife.
But,
And when I
just to-
talk wildlife, it's not, just deers
system.
and bears. It's every little thing, frogs and snakes and
And I have all those, and they come all
Turtles.
the way up in my yard. And the turtles come up in my yard with the sheds there.
All right, I don't know, I think I've heard enough on this matter, and we've really have gone through this several times in the past 4 months. Would anybody like to make a motion on this application? Okay, then I'll propose a motion. I propose that we deny the application on all 6 counts, that there are feasible alternatives to what's being proposed here, and that it just, the other part of it is my concern that if we let this go by and have 3 buildings built within the 50-foot setback, the next time we see another property here, that has that same lake frontage issue, that we don't, we can't fall back, we start setting a precedence that this does not matter. And
I'll second that.
And Mr. Chairman, as you indicated yourself, this is a unique piece of property. The likelihood of another application with such a unique piece of property, bounded by the roadways, with the waterfront, the likelihood that another...
We're passing a motion at this moment, okay? So, anybody second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we're about 13 minutes behind schedule here. The next application before us is a returning public hearing, so the hearing is still open. It is Verizon Professional Square. I believe on this application, we have a Zoom meeting that we need to patch into, so I'm going to turn over control of the screens to our attorney.
I've been, not being rude, I've been texting with our consultant, and he says he has no audio. So I don't know if that's the same for your consultant, who's also on Zoom?
I have to tell him that we're up.
Well, let's see what happens when we connect.
So, we connect in like this?
I'm sorry, what?
You may not have been paying attention to him, like, he's in control of it.
Oh, yeah, no. and
He
they're
can,
not-
he can turn people off.
And they're not on right now.
Yeah,
So,
so-
in fact, he just said, he says he got it. He said, no audio, David needs to unmute. Now he says, got it. So I think we're good.
Anthony on there?
Anthony is on there, I see him.
Okay,
Anthony, can you hear us?
all right.
Okay. And Mr. Evans from Cityscape and Mike Crosby from Verizon. You can hear us, Mr. Crosby?
Can't hear you.
Maybe unmute?
Mike, say something again, Mike Crosby. Now we got you.
Sound check, good. Loud and clear.
You see us? It's Dave, right? I'm
They
just
can only
curious.
see
I don't know.
Dave.
It's the new section of Zoom for me. I didn't think we have a new
Yeah, this is a
version of Zoom
Hybrid meeting.
after the past
Either
2
have
years.
them here in person or all Zoom, so this is a unique setting.
And we thank you for allowing Mike Crosby to join via Zoom. He's out of Rochester, so.
Okay, so we seem to have all the IT issues worked out, and the public hearing remains open. Mr. Olson, if you'd like to brief us on where we stand at this moment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Olson from Young Summer, and to my left is Brian Sarchi. He's the site acquisition specialist from Aerosmith, so he's had a lot of direct contact with the landowner as part of this lease. But what we're proposing to do is simply install 6 antennas on the roof of the professional square building. The equipment that typically goes along with these types of facilities will also be installed on the roof. In fact, Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, you were looking on Google Maps, and we went through different various street views to see where the equipment could and could not be seen from, as well as the antennas. And I think your concerns were somewhat addressed when you realized that the equipment could not be seen from as many locations, or really any locations that you looked at. But that's what it's a full roof-mounted facility, and it's intended to provide a really dual purpose. It's not only coverage but capacity. This is a populated town, along with this Orange County in general, and more people are using these devices, tons of wireless devices. And what that does is it just starts to, basically it's a drain on the network capacity, so that in this area, well, not this, in the area of OR Lake, so many resources are using the network that it's taking, it's making the sites nearby, like the Monroe site we have, it's running out of capacity. We've given you the capacity charts, and we're exceeding 100% in many instances. So this is for capacity and for coverage. We're here because we need a use variance, because as you know, we've gone through it, the town only has a utility overlay district, actually 4.5 maybe or so. And if you're not in one of those zoning districts, you're not permitted unless you get a use variance. There's the public necessity standard. I won't go into all of that. The board has been through that, and it's in our papers also. But the bottom line is, we can't be located in the utility overlay zoning districts because it won't resolve the problems that we have. The Monroe site, which is just about 1.33 miles south of this proposed site, we already have a facility there. So we can't be in that district because we're there. And there's a site, and this kind of came up in the Cityscapes letter that I received today, so I'm addressing it. I've spoken with Mike Crosby. It's the utility district that's, I guess, to the east. I think part of it's in your town, part of it's in Curious Joel. It's a little confusing to me. That doesn't matter so much, other than we actually have a site on a water tank in Curious Joel, which is 500, 600 feet away from that zone. So putting another site in that tiny little sliver is not going to do anything for us. It would create a massive problem for us, actually. So the bottom line is, we can't be in any of your utility tower overlay zoning districts. It is 3 and 4 and 5, but as Cityscapes acknowledged, they're just too far away, 4.5 miles or so. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but that's why we're here, for the use variance. and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the introduction, Scott.
Yes.
And I would like to hear from our consultant from Cityscapes, Anthony. Can you, can you? Good. Good to see you again. Excellent. Could you briefly go through your report for us tonight?
Sure. And I have with me Ben Evans, our senior engineer, who actually did all the analysis that went into the report. So if you have any specific questions that I cannot answer, Ben's here to also provide some context and background on them. As you know, you engaged us to review this application for the rooftop installations.
Can we lower the volume?
This is
Detailed in the
distracting.
application. I gave you an analysis of the applicable law, which you all should recall from our work in Coeur d'Alene several months ago. You became experts on the applicable law. So I won't beat that horse either. But what we found was that the applicant did demonstrate both a coverage and capacity need in this area. And as indicated, three of your utility overlay districts are well too far away to be effective. There is one to the northeast, and in addition to the reasoning that Mr. Olson just provided, vis-a-vis a adjacent facility to that, or what we call overlay district number one, I know in communicating with Mr. Crosby that there is a drain challenge between that site and the desired coverage area as well, somewhere north of 300 feet in elevation, creating a blockage of any signal to the area of desired coverage. And so that is another reason why site number one, which we asked the applicant to explain the reason for its non-usefulness. And I think we are satisfied with the reasoning of that. I also did, and what is not covered in the report, a virtual drive around the area and came across an existing tower on the OR Utilities property 4/10 of a mile northeast of the proposed site. For the same reasons as the overlay district number one, that site also will not work because of an intervening terrain issue that does not allow the signal to get to Route 17 in essence. So in addition to all the material that the applicant provided, we did our own sort of survey of alternatives to see if there was anything else out there that could be utilized. And while we found a couple of options, both of which the applicant has demonstrated to us do not provide the ability to serve the capacity coverage needs that they have demonstrated to us. So having said all of that, the standard is, of course, is this the least intrusive means by which this capacity and coverage gap can be met? And given the nature of the design on the rooftop of this building, given the location of the building in terms of visibility from the ground, either from Route 208 or any other publicly accessible area, or lack of visibility, I should say, we believe that this is a solution that does present the least obtrusive means and the least disruption to the community zoning plan, given the parameters that we have to work in for this facility.
Thank you, Anthony. Just one question for you, and it's related to this application, but not primarily about this application. We're starting to see these new micro towers and mini installations you know, that are coming in and asking to be located throughout the town. Is that what you see happening in the industry going down the road, that we're going to see more of this type of facility?
The small, if you're referring to the small wireless facilities in the public rights of way, yes, that is the growth market, if you will, for facilities as, capacity challenges are presented and, the needs of, providers to address those in particular capacity, but in terrain challenged areas like you are, also coverage issues, these small wireless facilities will serve as sort of the drop-in, fill-in, solutions to solve those two issues. And those particular types of facilities, if they're going in the public right of way, have a whole set of rules that are different than the ones you've already learned for what we call traditional macro facilities. And when we get to those, I'll be happy to educate you on what the rules are for those facilities, because they're slightly different than for these.
Thank you. Look forward to talking to you further on that. So, everybody on the board recognizes where this antenna is going to be installed. It's out on Route 208, just north of the Quickway crossing at that three-story professional building. I've been out to the site myself. I have tried, driven by it in both directions, looking at the top of the building. I couldn't see what's up there already.
I saw a wire.
Just a little whip of an antenna up there. And the applicant has expressed that this installation is going to be of the same size, no greater than that existing installation?
Oh, yeah, we're not going any higher. I think we're either exactly at the same height or we're
Slightly above,
Slightly above.
very slightly
is it
above.
above? I thought it was, all right. Then I forgot. I apologize. I thought we were either equal.
The only time you really get a view of it is if you're coming off the ramp, heading towards that light off the Quickway. That's the only time I was able to see what they were calling a penthouse and that, but that's the only quick view you get of it.
Very minimum.
It's a little confusing. I think we're actually a little less than a foot lower. So if you look at, I don't know if you have the plans in front of you, sheet C3, and if you look where we put the heights, the leftmost height, 76.1 plus or minus feet, top of whip antenna. That whip antenna is not actually ours. It's the next one, 75.4, top of proposed Verizon antenna. That is, what sticks up is just, I think it's a pipe from the whip antenna, from what I can tell from this schematic. So we were just, actually just slightly less, but it's, for all intents and purposes, probably equal. When you're looking at your, exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I've learned enough about.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Okay, that being the case, I'll open the floor up to comments from the public. Is there anybody out there that wants to speak on behalf of the Verizon application? Okay. That being the case, we have no further questions. You've summarized your case before us. We've received our report from Cityscape and clarifications from Anthony, so we're comfortable with that. If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So at this juncture, Dave.
So, you can do a couple things right now, right? So, you're aware of the law, you've known the law from prior applications and from in this application. I've given it to you. Mr. Lepore summarized it well in his report. I agree with everything that's in his report in regard to what the standards are. Just in terms of procedure, an approval or denial of an application of this type requires a written resolution. What you could do, it seems like, I don't think I'm stepping out of bounds if I say that it seems like this is headed for an approval based upon Mr. Lepore's report and everything that we've all heard. If that's the case, you could, from here, the applicant needs to get to the planning board, and Mr. Olson sent around a letter offering to extend the shot clock for both boards through the end of January, which would give time for this board to finish its work and for the planning board to then finish its work, presumably. So you could do one of two things. You could either vote for an approval tonight, if that's what you were going to do, and then authorize me to prepare a resolution as you ordinarily might do, and authorize the chairman to sign it, and I could put together a resolution in the meantime that could just be signed and approved, but that way at least the applicant could proceed to the planning board knowing that they at least have the verbal approval. They don't yet have the written resolution.
Right, because
We don't have a meeting in December.
we don't have a meeting in
Right.
December, so our next one is January 25th.
I forgot about that, so all the more important to actually vote tonight, give them the approval, and I'll get to work on a written resolution ASAP thereafter, and that way you can just do what you need to do and get to the planning board.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful because, the planning board's received our application and we've had a tech meeting already, but I don't know how strict they are in terms of will they consider the application before this board votes or not. Previously, they did not do it that way. So, and with the shot clock, obviously, we want to have all the issues addressed, but also if it's going towards an approval, we'd love to get before the planning board in December. That's what I spoke with Ashley about. And it's hopefully December 9th, actually, so.
Okay.
So the town is moving, promptly on this, which is great. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you were so inclined, you could entertain a motion to approve the use variance on the ground that the applicant has demonstrated a need for the facility, that the facility that they propose will satisfy that need, and that this facility is the least intrusive means to accomplish that goal, yeah. And then to authorize me to do a resolution consistent with that.
In the matter of making the determination on this application, in the matter of making a determination on this application, would anybody like to make offer up a resolution for approval of this?
Motion to offer up a resolution.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And secondly, authorize David to draft that resolution, and for me, upon review and approval of that, sign that resolution.
Make a motion for our attorney to draft that resolution and for Chairman Murphy to sign that resolution.
I
Second that.
second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, with that, I believe that closes this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate the
Very
prompt
welcome.
review.
Thanks for your good work on this, both Anthony and Mr. Evans at Cityscape. Another job well done.
Thank you, good night.
Do we need, does anybody else, does the next one need Zoom? No? So I should unplug this and give it back to Mike? Okay. Okay. Oh, Jesus, almost lost it. You have it?
Okay, moving along on the agenda, the next item we have is a returning public hearing on the matter of Matzah on 474 Round Lake Park Road. Is there anybody here to represent the applicant?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
State your name.
Harley Matzel.
So when we last left you at the close of the public hearing last month, there was some discussion of making modifications to your building and your site plan, and we held the case over till now for you to come back and present those modifications.
There's been a couple of developments.
Modified maps and drawings were
You
submitted?
modified that quite a bit.
Pardon?
You modified that quite a bit.
Okay, well, there's been a couple of developments. One is we're not going to put the flat roof and just put a regular roof. I think it's very nice, thank you. And the other is that the surveyor recalculated the square footage of the lot because the building inspector rounded it down to 0.2 acres, and it actually is a little more than that. And so those extra few feet actually impact the amount of square footage that the variance I'm asking for. So I don't know how many square feet 0.2 acres is, but the total area of the lot is actually 9,750 square feet. So
The map that I'm showing up here on the screen, this is the new map that you're referring to?
yeah, excellent, thank you. And thank you.
Okay, so originally you were here for lot coverage. I think your side yards were good. Lot coverage was the are 23.9%, and the proposed impervious surface is 27.3. Going up allowed maximum lot coverage is 25%. So when we talked, I thought there was discussion of narrowing the side deck area.
There was some discussion of that, but there was, also with the roof. So I'm giving up like my ability to like sit on the roof. And so, and my lot is, pretty steep. There's no flat place in front of my house that I could, let's say, put a table and a lounge chair. I'll just roll down and break my neck. So I kind of need like a nice deck on the side there to where I could put a table and a couple of lounge chairs, perhaps. It doesn't affect the setbacks. And so it's 2.5% more than the allowable or the maximum. I'm asking for a variance, small variance.
Yeah, just right where we left off last month, it was late. The deck, the side deck was getting reduced to almost the stair width to get up to the roof. And that's where we left off. It was getting shrunk down, and at that point, there was still a rooftop where we were discussing, could it be a glass railing, all those kind of things. So since then, but that's where we left off on that meeting, Chairman.
So it's in giving, for me, you asked, what can you give back? So I gave back the whole roof thing.
This board doesn't rule on the roof. The only way the roof affects us is in lot coverage, or if the roof is too high. So we didn't have an issue with that. I mean, you put a nice hip roof on it so that it's more in keeping with the nature of the homes in the neighborhood, that's fine. But, like Chip just mentioned, we thought that we were getting a reduction in lot coverage. And instead, we got something a little bit different than
And
that.
it's actually less of a lot coverage with the factual numbers than it was before.
But it doesn't change the case. You still ask for variance on it.
I'm asking for a variance on it. I want to have a little deck next to the house so I could sit.
Does any,
Does it affect sides? It doesn't
it doesn't affect the side yard
Okay,
because
that's why I mixed up. I understand. Yep.
so if there were a roof on that deck, then we'd
Yeah,
have a
then
major side yard issue.
Right.
So the variance, just so we're clear, so the variances that are requested, primarily what's changing is the lot coverage, but he needs because he's expanding, he needs a variance for the lot area. And looking at the zoning chart, now I see the difference you were talking about, right? It was 9672 computed before, but now it's computed as 9750. That's the difference. So it's still below lot area, but you have a little bit more. It needs lot width because it's short of 10 feet on the lot width. These are things obviously you're not changing with your application. You're fine on the front yard. On the side yard, you're, you're short a foot and a half on one of the side yards and 13 feet on the total side yard. Am I right on that?
Yeah, this is just where the house already is.
That's on the other side, not on the deck side? Or is it on the deck side?
I think it's on the other
The
side.
deck side is 13 feet,
That is,
and the other side is 14. So,
okay, so September 5, 2021 chart has the side yard as 13.5. It should be 13.2, right? If I'm looking at that chart.
right, because now it's based on it.
14 point?
14.3.
Those are all existing conditions. The lot area, the lot width, and the two side yards are existing conditions, and then the lot coverage. On the chart, it said 25.7 is existing, but I know Mr. Matzel just mentioned that the existing is 23.9,
That's correct.
and the proposed now, instead of what's in the chart, 30.8, it's not 30.8, it's 27.3, right?
Right.
Okay. What, do we figure out, and my memory's, failing me probably because of the lateness of the last meeting or two. But do we know what accounts for that reduction from the 30.8 that was in the chart and the current proposed 27.3? Did you eliminate something to bring that down, or was it just a
No,
computation
just a
thing?
recalculation of the actual square footage of the lot, because it's not a perfect rectangle.
Right, because now we have a survey version of it. Before, they were going off the old map, and they were just measuring by hand.
And rounded down by
areas.
the building inspector.
And you should not be taking the information from the building inspector. This is why we tell people to go to surveyors to get the numbers correct from the start. So I thank you for getting the survey updated. All right, so basically, we have the lot width, which is a pre-existing condition that cannot be changed. The lot area, which is, again, a pre-existing condition that cannot be changed.
The side yards are supposed to be 15 feet each, so each are already existing
And they're just
under,
shy.
just shy. And then the total side yard, you're supposed to have 40, and he's providing 27.5 for the total.
Right.
Yeah, unrelated to the addition, because the addition doesn't count in the side yard, right? I mean,
Right, the proposed deck. All right, so really, the only thing he's increasing variance on here is the only thing that's being increased in variance here is the lot coverage. We're going up from 23.9 up to 27.3, and the maximum allowable is 25. So he's going to be 2.3% higher than the allowable maximum. And that's really the only variance that's being impacted by this proposal for rebuilding the house. Board members have any questions?
and with your new configuration of your roof, that complies with the height because of the way it's computed under the code?
Way
Substantially
way
under?
below 35.
Okay.
I think it was 28.
And the county GML referral came back with local determination. So that's not an impediment.
Somewhere, I read it today.
So to the eaves of the house, it's only 18 feet high. Or less than 30. Comply with the stories. Opening the questions to the floor. Does anybody in the public have questions or comments on this application?
Council, if you could,
Hi there, I'm David Carreras. I'm Harley's neighbor. Just go on the record for saying C-A-R-R-E-R-A-S. 458 Round Lake Park Road. Sure. I'd like to say thank you for the adjustment to the rooftop deck and take into consideration the park-like setting of Round Lake Park and the neighbors' concerns and critiques of that proposed rooftop deck. Although it wasn't a variance, I appreciate your understanding of how that aesthetic may change the neighborhood. Also like to go on record of the email that was sent today. Great. within that letter, if they could just confirm the photos that are attached to that email. And some of the concerns that were also raised by myself and my other neighbors were the
At the photos of the tarp that you're referring to?
correct, yes. Some of the improper decisions that are going to be possibly made in the construction of this house. And that's a great reference with those photos. So that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Please approach the board and give us your
Take the
name and
mic.
address, and use the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Mike Egan. I live in Round Lake Park as well, which is where this is. I just had a simple question, actually, for the applicant. Maybe you answered it. I find the acoustics in this room very challenging, so I might have missed it. But are you able, Harley, to put that deck, the one that remains now, on the back of the house as opposed to what seems to be encroaching awfully close to the property line on the side there? You know, you have an existing violation of setbacks, which is not uncommon in Round Lake Park, but you know, generally you don't make it worse. So that's my question. Why are you going out over there?
Doesn't have any effect on the setback. Because it's permeous. It's permeous, water can go through it, and so that deck does not have any effect on the setback.
The deck doesn't have an effect on the side yard setback because it doesn't have a roof over it. If it had a roof, then it's considered
Oh,
part
okay.
of a covered
Thank you.
structure. It's not open to the sky. This deck is open to the sky. And I agree with you that it is really tight to the property line on that side. And, you know, unfortunately, our code doesn't cover that. Yeah. All the measurements are taken to the roof line of the house for setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You.
Hi, my name is Julie Tanner. I live at 454 Round Lake Park Road. I'm concerned about the condition of the property currently. Mr. Matzel owns the adjacent lot, and currently there's wood scattered. I think it's probably the pictures that Dave was referring to. There's wood scattered all about the property. It's been there for about probably a month. Prior to that, there was a lot of wood, an old chair that was sitting there for about a year. So there's just a lot of concern about construction. Is it going to be safe? I currently have a view as well of the tarp from my backyard.
I would think that temporary things like tarp are going to be removed in this process where they're putting a second story on the building. As you mentioned, Mr. Matzel does own the parcel next door that has a foundation. I don't know what the history of that was. Was there a house that burned down out there? Yes. That's not the subject of this application at this time. Okay. But I do hear your concerns when somebody does undertake a construction project in a developed area. At the time of construction, they have to be very diligent about keeping that site safe, keeping the debris, the construction debris contained and removed on a regular basis, and not creating an attractive nuisance.
Exactly, and that's what it is right now. There's debris, and it's been that way for a while. That's it.
As far as the email that we received with the picture of the tarp, And I think when asked, the answer was privacy. Is that?
Are you asking?
No, I'm just trying to. If
Are you
everyone
asking
had
me?
Saw that email that came in, was it today or yesterday? That's along with the picture, and it was privacy. And that seems to be an issue. Is that a temporary tarp that's in the area? Or is that, did I get that quote wrong? What, did you not say it was for privacy, or can you clarify the tarp seems to be an issue here?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
What is the question? It's definitely exclusively related to privacy.
Is it a temporary, is the tarp temporary?
Not necessarily. And it's also not on the property that we're here discussing.
No, it was something that came in that people were asking, so.
All right, well,
just
it's got
looking for
nothing to do with this.
Just looking for clarification.
Okay.
I have that email open on the screen, but I don't see any pictures attached to it.
Yeah, there was.
It's an earlier.
I was very busy this morning with emails.
That tarp is not on the property, that's on the vacant lot?
That's correct.
Hey, what is the purpose of the tarp?
The purpose of the tarp is to provide
Have a purpose?
yes, it does. It's so that privacy for my home. Apparently,
I'm sorry,
apparently,
you just said it was on the vacant lot, right?
yes, but it provides privacy to my house.
Not seeing how
I'm
possible.
not getting that, and I really
Well,
don't see
you don't, do you see my house on
Not in
that
that
photo? On
photograph.
that photo, do you see my house? All right, it's back there. So without that
I mean,
there,
this
you,
is a valid question. This is unsightly. You know, I would question this if my neighbor put up something like that. That's not a proper fence. But that's between you and the building inspector. That's not for this board to decide.
okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please approach the board, give us your name and address. We're getting to the end.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Susan Pendergast. I live at 28 Tefanic Avenue. I think the reason too, as far as like all the wood in the property, over the summer, we've had vandalism at the lake. Someone set a tree on fire, excuse me, which we ended up having as an association. We've had to pay.
Hold the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mic closer.
Is this it?
That's-
I'm sorry. We've had to have the tree cut down and removed. We're worried about safety because there was also another incidence of fire, and maybe with the tarp, you know, we're afraid if something happens, if somebody wants to do something, that, you know, it could, you know, if a fire happened, it could involve the houses around it.
Right,
Mr. Chairman, who is the proper person that this should be, or
This is a building department issue.
Building department.
Unrelated to this application. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right. Does anybody else in the audience have further comment on this application related to the proposed construction or reconstruction of Mr. Matzel's home and the variances associated to it? If not, and the board has no further questions, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing? I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Mr. Matzah.
Thank you. One little personal thing. Jake, my builder, his son was involved in a fatal car crash just 2 days ago. He's fighting for his life as we speak. That's why Jake is not here.
Prayers are with.
Yep, pray. And thank you, you did a great job.
Public hearing being closed, it's time for us to consider the variances that are before us tonight. As we went over during the meeting, there are lot width variance, which is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, a lot area variance, pre-existing non-conforming, side lot line issues, again pre-existing non-conforming, and this application does not make any of those conditions any worse. And the real outlier here is the lot coverage. And it is a relatively small lot, so any amount of impervious or lot coverage that you add to it will add, it's easy to go over the numbers. Mr. Matzel did provide us with an updated survey. Let's see, boom. With the updated survey map that shows the existing lot coverage is 24%, the allowable is 25. He's looking to bump that up to 27.3. So it's a slight increase because of the additions on the back side of the house. It's bumping that back 5 feet. And that's probably where all of the additional lot coverage comes from. The shed that's shown on the map is to be removed, and that, I imagine, is deducted from this proposed lot coverage area.
I don't think so.
Shed to be removed.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Are you removing it?
I could. I got no use for it.
So that's part of your application.
Good, very good. Be
what's-
happy to.
All right. So, in considering those variances that are requested and those variances that exist, it's our charge to determine whether there's an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variances.
Say no.
I would say that, just going even a step further in that direction, although we are not an architectural review board, the fact that he put a pitched roof on the house rather than having a flat deck roof on top makes it blend in much better with the homes in the area.
Difference.
It
Does
go
go to aesthetics, it does go to changing character of the neighborhood.
Right. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method which will be feasible for the applicant to pursue but would not require a variance. That's where we get into the issue of the side deck. Could you cut enough area off of that side deck to meet the code completely? And on the other hand, if that does remain as part of the property, the improvements to the property, is that really a substantial impact?
I don't think it's substantial.
I don't think, From the pictures, is it side and front deck? There's a little bit of a front deck that goes along too, or?
Yeah,
Right, so it's
on the second floor,
So it's side and front deck.
but it's above the
Wraparound.
walkway that's already there, so that doesn't really impact the,
All right. And that gets to, right, the item number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I think, given the minor increase in lot coverage from 25% to 27.3% lot, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a minor increase. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. It's already a constructed lot. He's going to be enlarging the house, utilizing the same footprint that's out there. The driveways are going to be made no bigger. The shed is going to be removed. That's in the rear corner of the lot. So, the physical impacts to once the construction is done, it'll and whether an alleged difficulty is self-created. So, considering the area variances that are being requested here, would anybody like to make a motion to address those? That's where we're getting to,
No, is that put into the motion?
Yes, yeah, the motion's open. Propose to approve it, and the board turns it down, then that's the motion. If we propose to deny it, and the board turns that down,
Make a motion to approve the variances, the variance.
The variances, there's
multiple.
there's the 4 variances.
Oh, the
Three for,
pre-existing, I'm
yeah,
sorry,
the
the
3 for
pre-existing.
existing conditions and the
Yeah.
1 for the lot coverage.
I make a motion to approve the variances.
And the variance would be for lot coverage, to be clear, it's the ones that, per the amended, not what was in the application, but per the amendments that came in, as were discussed on the record.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and as the next motion, would somebody authorize our attorney, Dave McCartney, to prepare such a resolution and for me to sign that resolution after reviewing it?
I make a motion for our attorney, Dave McCarty, to draft a resolution and for Chairman Murphy to sign that resolution. Upon review.
Anybody want to second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right, Mr. Matzel, I think that's, your business is done here. You can go back to the building department.
What do we have to do with the planning board?
There's two things that are left to do tonight. One is, I don't remember whether there was a vote taken or not, but either way, at the last meeting, I know I was directed to prepare a resolution. So I've prepared that, and it's been circulated, and that's a resolution that I think you should all have before you, which would be to reverse the determination of the building inspector on this issue of, his interpretation of the code and what the term frontage means in that context. And the resolution at the end finds that the building inspector was reversed, and the board interprets that code section to provide that the requirement under that section that the use shall maintain frontage on a major collector road is not satisfied unless access is also provided to a major collector road via that frontage. So if you've all reviewed that resolution, it would be appropriate to, if you're good with it, that's fine. If you have any changes or questions,
Excuse me.
you can raise it.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Excuse us in the back.
In the back, can you please take that conversation outside? Thank you. Have a good evening.
So if anybody has any questions about the resolution, now would be the time to ask me. If everybody's okay with it, you could just entertain a motion to approve the resolution that you've all reviewed that makes that finding.
Can we go through it line by line?
No.
That is certainly a joke. I make a motion. I run it through my head like 5 times before I say them.
Okay. So, we've received the resolution that you've written, and we don't recall whether we voted on that last month, so if we revote that tonight.
If I just have a question, what exactly was presented in terms of what determines frontage?
Primarily, it was set forth in the application documents and the narrative provided by the attorney for the planning board. She laid out pretty well what the case was, that frontage requires access, and it goes to reading the code as a whole. There's other places within the code that talks about frontage. It makes it fairly clear that frontage goes hand in hand with access, not just, a random couple feet that happen to abut a major collector road, but that have no meaningful access via that abutment. And there's some provisions in the New York State Town Law, Section 280A, that are consistent with frontage meaning access, not just any frontage. And also in regard to the overall purpose of the code, there's some statements concerning the objectives to be furthered by the performance criteria, including that frontage requirement, and having to do specifically with making sure that the traffic is under control, that there's safe and ready access to and from these collector roads. And that's basically, so reading the code as a whole, it seemed clear that was the intent.
Yeah, and one of the key phrases in there for frontage was that it was a maintained access. My well, if there's a driveway, it's not. And this really applies to parcels that have multiple points of road frontage, and it applies to everything. They showed us one application, over on Cromwell Hill Road and Allison Drive, where the Allison Drive was the actual parcel's lot frontage as that parcel was designed in a subdivision many years ago, and that it had just the tip of a corner of the lot that went down to Cromwell Hill Road. Well, there's an example of a parcel with multiple frontages, but the only one that really counts as the main frontage is the one where they take access, where their mailbox is, where their driveway is, how they get in and out of that property all the time. So that's, that's what sold me in on that interpretation, is that the frontage must be a maintained access way.
And by the way, I since found my notes from last meeting. You did not vote. You asked me to do a decision, and prepare the resolution. I was going to draft it and present it to you today for your consideration. But you did have a pretty hefty and significant discussion about the fact, about all these things. So it was clear to me which way you were going, so I was just memorializing that with the resolution.
There a motion on the floor to accept the resolution as written by our attorney on the matter of our interpretation of lot frontage?
I make a motion to accept the written resolution from our attorney in regards to Allison Court definition of lot frontage.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So carried.
And then there was one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of an old business, it's not on the agenda. I have some legal advice to give you on an older application, or on an application that you already considered and voted on. Do you want to do a motion? I'll give you a 30-second attorney-client session. Motion, yeah,
I make a
promise.
motion to go to attorney-client
promise.
privilege.
We'll step out.
Second.
Yeah, so there was a motion, do we need a second and a vote?
Second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
What we do?
No.
George hear us? I'm a loud guy.
A motion to reopen the meeting?
Make a motion to reopen the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So for the members of the board, I've prepared a resolution embodying the denial to Kingsville Synagogue that was voted on last time, and all have the written resolution embodying that denial before you. And if anybody has any questions about it, you can feel free to ask me. I'm assuming you've all reviewed it, and if you have, and it would be appropriate right now to entertain a motion to approve that written resolution.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, David, for helping us close up that one last action. And I believe that takes care of everything, all of the application matters on our agenda. The remaining item that we have are the minutes.
Well, we definitely cancel in December.
Yes. Yes.
Because I put out a notification, I just want to make sure.
Well, let's see, we have minutes from... We have minutes from May, June, July, and September.
I don't think you have September's, because I want to send them today.
Okay.
You did, it went to sleep, sorry. You don't have September's.
Not have September, okay, so that shortens the list. Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from May 25th, 2021?
I have.
I have.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or edits to offer on those minutes? That being the case, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the May 25th, 2021 minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve May 2021 minutes.
I'll second the
Second.
motion.
Who's that?
Chip.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
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 You have to abstain. See that?
I abstain.
Thank you, Steve. So, moving on to June 22nd, 2021 minutes. Has everybody had opportunity to review those?
Yes.
And do you have any comments or edits to offer?
Totally wrong.
Okay.
All right, so we'll have to have a do-over on that. No,
No.
everything's okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that being the case, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for June 22nd, 2021?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2021.
A lot of twos in there.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had one. Second, please.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
It actually started with 6. What's really June?
And the last set of meeting minutes that we have to review and approve is July 27th, 2021. Has everybody reviewed those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any comments or edits to be offered?
No.
Can I get a motion to approve the July 27th, 2021 minutes?
Make a motion to approve the July 27th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. So I believe that concludes the actions we have to take tonight. And the final action we have is an adjournment of the meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you and good night.
Good night.